All right, guys, so this lesson is going to be about creating the server and connecting our React app with our Node.js background, which in turn is going to be connected to MongoDB Atlas. We're going to go ahead and create a database there, and that should be free. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, you're going to go to mongodb.com, which is just mongodb.com. When you're full screen, you'll have sign in or try free. You're going to go ahead and try free if you already haven't created a MongoDB account. So go ahead, pause the video, try it for free, set up your account, get to the main page, and we're going to be using the Atlas section of MongoDB. So once you're there, you should see Atlas, App Services, Charts. Okay, click on Atlas. This should be empty. So you're going to want to go up here to Create. And I believe the free version is going to be under Shared. Choose whichever section matches the closest location to where you are. Rule of thumb is the closer your server is to your physical location, the faster of a connection you'll have. So choose that. A free cluster should be right here to choose from. It should be the M0 sandbox. So go ahead, get that created. It'll take a few minutes to spin up, so feel free to pause the video while that's booting up. Once you're back, we're going to go ahead and click Connect, and you're going to see a couple different options. I am going to teach you the pretty basic way of connecting to MongoDB. I think understanding this way first and building the basic foundation will then give you the knowledge to later on use more advanced tools like connect using VS Code or MongoDB Compass. I teach junior devs the same thing as well with the Git command line. I would so much rather you be great at using the command line for committing code or doing cherry picks or whatever before you use a utility like Kraken or Git Lens or whatever. Because if you have the sub knowledge to begin with, you'll be able to use those tools and appreciate them, but be able to know what's actually happening on the back end, just in case anything goes wrong. That's my process for here. We're going to go ahead and connect your application just using this basic route. It's going to be Node.js version 4.0 or later, which I highly recommend. And this is going to be our password, our login for the MongoDB database. And you can see, obviously, there's going to be a field for our password. You should have already given it a name. You should have already given it I believe the password is just going to be your MongoDB sign-in password. So we'll circle back to this. I just wanted to make sure you're all set up with this first. Now, I'm going to put this bad boy to the side, and we're going to go full screen. We need to actually create our server.js. So we're going to go in and do that here real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my React app down. I'm going to touch server.js, and we'll see here that popped up right there. Touch is essentially your bash command for creating a file. We're going to need to npm I a few different things. So we'll do npm I. It's going to be mongoose, which is kind of a middleware working with MongoDB. We'll get started with this. If you're going to do a lot more in-depth projects, it's going to be much easier working with just the regular MongoDB library than Mongoose. We're just doing stuff very surface level, so we don't need to create watches or queries or sub-pub type projects. We're just storing and then opening and closing the database. That's it. Next, you're going to do cores. Then you're going to do express. And then we're going to do node mon. So I'm going to go ahead and get those installed. Now, cores is going to be our cross-origin response service. I don't know if that's exactly what it stands for, but it just helps us avoid certain CORS issue that you might run into with the internet these days. Express.js is kind of a layer on top of Node.js. It allows us to just use things a little bit more simply and more intuitively. Node.js is still pretty straightforward though. NodeMon is going to be some middleware on how we're going to keep our application running, because there will be sometimes a restart or we'll be coding and it's just a pain in the butt to have to shut down and boot up your server over and over and over again. So those are the 3 commands. We can see now they've been installed, and we can see in our package lock JSON, CORS, Express, Mongoose, NodeMon. Always double check those. All right, so now we have our server.js. We're gonna do const mongoose equals require or parentheses mongoose. So with Node.js, and I know you might be a little bit new, the require is very similar to our import. When you're on the back end, you have to use require. That's just Node.js syntax. And what we're gonna do is, so we can avoid writing multiple consts, we're going to just put a comma at the end. And now this will allow us to define multiple variables. So we'll do another require, we'll do CORS, and pardon me one sec. Yeah, I got my ESLint on, so sometimes when I hit save with VS Code, it'll auto format. That's fine, we'll just go through and write them all here. And that's the lovely part about VS Code is things just auto format or auto complete. We're gonna go ahead and create a keys file, and I'll show you why. That goes back to our MongoDB password. We just want to make sure it's secure. Boom, there we go. Let's go ahead, we'll do touch, down here in the command line, touch keys.js. Okay, perfect. And essentially we're just gonna define a couple variables here. We're gonna do const password equals whatever your password is. I'm just gonna have an empty string, and then we'll do const username equals empty string. And we'll actually do module.exports. And we'll do it this way. Password, empty string, comma, username, empty string. Okay, and module.exports will actually allow us to do something like when we do our user or our MongoDB URI, it'll allow us to just do keys.password, exactly like it's showing right there. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because I want you to go ahead and fill in this information. I'm gonna do it myself, and that way, you know, your files are containing your information, and eventually you'll want to go ahead and Dockerize this. I have a video that I created a couple months ago about that exact thing for this exact application. But then also for me, I don't have to have my password exposed to you guys because we know the internet. So let's get that taken care of here real quick. So I hope you have that done. I've got it done on my side. So now we can do this is gonna be some basic setup you'll always do with your backend application. Okay, So API port, we're going to use that at the end of this file. Essentially, when you are using Docker, you can define a port as an environment variable. If that's not defined, it will default, we have this OR syntax here, to 5000. Now this DB URI is going to be in our MongoDB section. All right, so that's the string that we produced earlier. And again, how to go to this, we'll go back, we'll close, connect your application, Node.js 4.0 or later, and you'll go ahead and use this. Now there is this box here, if you haven't already checked it to see what it does, you can see that it gives you the full syntax of everything. And it gives you just the require of the MongoDB library itself, which again, I said, I recommend for more complex applications, but for ours, we're just going to do Mongoose. We're going to leave it unchecked, and we're just going to go ahead and copy this string. Now, we're going to go ahead and paste it in. You can see the cursors at the end. Hit Shift and click towards the beginning. We're going to add backticks to it. So that way in here, we can do $, curly bracket, and then go to the end of password, delete the other caret, curly bracket, and there we can do keys.password. And then we'll do the same thing here, $, curly bracket, keys.username. So this is now our DB URI. And we can see here that our username and password are now being imported from the keys.js file. And that's where you should have stored your username and password just for this sake of coding. Also, if you are uploading this to GitHub, you do not want your password and username being stored in a public GitHub repo. You're going to want to make sure anytime there's intellectual property or IP that it is a private repo that then you give people access rights to if you decide to share it. That's why this is not public on my GitHub. Okay, so now we're going to do, get rid of that actually. We're going to do app.use express.json. And this is just some setup to make sure things communicate properly from the front end to the back end. And finally, app.use cores. That's again for a cross origin situation. If you don't have this, you're going to run into Google issues and server communication with client issues. It's just, I recommend you try it because you're going to run into it eventually, but this is the solution if you're building your own project. Next, we're going to do something called a schema, okay? We're going to do const journal schema equals new mongoose dot schema, and that's going to be wrapped in parentheses. Is that a parentheses? I don't know, whatever this curly thing is with curly brackets. That might be parentheses. You know what? I'm curious right now. What are parentheses? Parentheses, perfect. There we go. Man, I talk so much language sometimes, and yeah, it just sometimes you just don't know. Words sound the same. So anyways, parentheses, curly brackets, and this is where we're going to define what the data should look like going to our database. So we're going to have tags, and we're going to send that in the form of an array. We're going to have title. We're going to send that in the form of a string. Our body is going to be in the form of a string. And we're going to have created, which is going to have a type field of date. and a default date of date.now. And we're going to rely on this field specifically to help us identify when our files have been created. So we can see here we have title, create, tags, and body. So our title is going to be a string. This is just going to be something we're going to get when we retrieve these from the database. Our tags are going to be a string, and our body, right, it's just going to be a long string. It's going to be a journal entry. All right, so now that we have those, go back to our code. And so now we're going to do const journal. It's going to equal mongoose.model. And then we're going to have it be journal. And then that's going to be our journal schema. Right? And this is, again, just our way of saying the model of our data should equal the journal schema. And we can see if we hover over this model here, that's exactly what it's saying. And then it's going to expect these things. And that's kind of a way of doing data validation. I don't particularly do a significant amount of validating if that data is correct in what I'm going to teach you. But this is important to know because you can throw errors if tag does not equal array or title does not equal string. This is a way we can protect our database from scripting attacks. Sometimes hackers will go ahead and try to type in some, script language here to try maybe inject, I don't know, HTML with the script tags that can run JavaScript or whatever, right? But we're gonna go ahead and make sure that it's just a string. So when a string is run and scrubbed on our backend, you can just validate against it. Again, I'm not gonna set it up and show you that scrubbing, but that is something I would highly recommend you look into on your own. That being said, we're gonna do a few more things here. We're gonna go and create app.listen. And this is where we're gonna type in our API port. Sorry, arrow function, and this is gonna be a console log. Backticks, we're gonna do listening on port, API port. And this is a pretty normal string that you'll see across a lot of companies and a lot of developers using this type of code. It's going to output that our code is listening, right? So we're going to go to our package.json and we're going to write another script. We're going to call this dev. And dev is simply going to be, nodemon. And we're going to do another one called dev start. And that's going to be nodemon server.js. I rarely use this. You'll typically want to chain the whatever nodemon is with another script. I always just put it there because who knows what I'm going to end up developing, right? Sometimes I don't even know. Save both files, and now we can do npm run dev start, and that is going to go ahead, and you can see here, it targeted our server.js. Nodemon is running everything, and it's listening on port 5000. That is fantastic. This is exactly what we wanted. So now one final thing we need to do is in our package.json, we need to add a proxy to our project. and this proxy is going to end up being a string, right? I believe it's a string. Let me double check on that. Yep, it's a string. And literally how I did that, again, the art of Googling, connect React to Node.js. The first answer, bada boom. I scrolled down and I found out this section here, proxy, and it's supposed to be a string. They obviously forgot to close it on the back end here. But again, guys, gotta be good at the art of Googling. So we'll do proxy string of HTTP :// localhost. Actually, I think what we can even do is go to our React project. Just click up here in the area, Control A, copy it, bring it down, Control V, there we go. And we'll get rid of all that, and we'll just rename it to 5,000. Save that. So what this does is this allows our React app to sense that there is a server connected, and it will go ahead and now be able to work with it. And I'll show you that here in just a sec. So let's go ahead and just create a basic Node.js command. We'll do app.get, and we're just gonna call it test, /test. All right, and then we're gonna have that just be a function. It's gonna be, actually, just kidding. We'll do async space, there we go. res, request response. Now inside we're gonna do res.send, and in there we'll just do status of 200, okay? So we're just doing, this is called a simple GET request. There are a few different types of requests you can do. Get, post, put, delete are your most common ones. There are a few other ones in there. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but get, post, put, and delete are going to be your most common uses. However, if you are interviewing for mid-level dev positions, it's probably good to know all of them. I believe there's maybe 6 or 7 total. What we're going to do now is on our front end, let's go home. We're just going to go ahead and create a button. Okay, and on click is going to equal handle click. Okay, up here we're going to have a function called handle click. And that's going to be fetch, and our fetch URL is going to actually our handle click needs to be asynchronous. So now when we fetch, we're going to do const test equals await fetch, because this will be a promise, and it's going to do test, and we're gonna create an object. It's gonna be a method of get that needs to be a string. Our headers are important, okay? Our headers is going to be an object. I'm actually just gonna copy this from my other window here. Our content type is gonna be application JSON. We're gonna accept application JSON. So we're essentially saying that we're gonna send and receive JSON. Now from there, I'll have that closing comma. We're gonna do a then statement, which is going to be response. We're gonna turn that into response.json. And from there, we are going to log test. Let's give that a whirl. We'll see what happens. So we'll go home. I think I need to refresh. Oh, actually, funny enough, we need to hit this plus button here. We're gonna get a new terminal. Actually, hit the split button. So now we can do npm run start. That is going to build our React app. It's gonna open it up in a new window. We can see it's loading. Awesome. Here's our button right here. You know, maybe we should actually add something to it so it has some substance. Test. Okay, there we go. So we're going to inspect it, look for our console, put these here. And so now when we click it, look at that, status of 200. We can officially see it's connected to our server. And if we go back to our home.js, it didn't really say anything, but that's because we're not particularly outputting anything. It was just a get command, but we can see here that we're sending status 200. Let's see if it does anything in real time. It might not. Oops. Test. Yeah, it probably won't until we start doing post commands. So that's okay. But we were able to see that each time we click it, it's a status of 200. So our server is now connected to our ReactJS app. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this video here. In the next video, we're going to do the work to create more API calls and then actually start connecting things that our app needs to be connected to, and also start storing data in the database. That's where things get really exciting. So we'll see you in the next video.